we wake, hear the birds and see the sun.
Hey friends, welcome back. I'm Allison if you're new here, and today we are getting back to our DIY makeover era. I love creating these videos and we just haven't had a chance to do them. I haven't had the inspiration. A lot of the rooms in the house have been made over, but this playroom has stuck with me as one that's just not quite finished. A few videos ago I featured this accent wall that's super simple. I just taped a straight line across the wall, took some paint from our garage and painted the lower half of it. I like the look of like a trim piece dividing the two colors or whatever, but I really ended up loving just the simplicity of just a two-tone wall. This paint color is from Valspar, sold at Lowe's in the color Tornado Watch. It's a really pretty like mossy green color. So I did this a couple videos ago, so I'm giving you a little flashback to catch you up to this room. And after I painted this wall, I knew I needed to add more to it. So one thing I wanted to do was add these Ikea shelves that are very, very, very popular. So popular, in fact, that they are always sold out, potentially discontinued at Ikea. They're called the Flisat shelf, and it's just a cute way to store your baby's books or children's books. I see it in lots of playrooms all over Instagram, and I had notifications for restocks turned on from Ikea for literal months. Like, they have not been in stock near me for months, and rather than pay overpriced on eBay to get them secondhand, I realized we have a really large scrapwood pile in our house, and we could just DIY these ourselves. So we have the accent wall painted in the playroom now. I'm gonna go through and tape out roughly the size that I want them to be. I wanted it to be pretty similar to the actual Ikea shelves in those dimensions, but because we're building them custom, we could do whatever we wanted. So I ended up doing maybe an inch or two shorter than the Ikea custom shelves. I will have all of my measurements and the cuts that we made down below in the description if you want like actual details on the exact shelves we made, but it's pretty straightforward to figure out the math yourself. But step one in this process is just taping it out, measuring it, figuring out the exact cuts. Thankfully, I have a husband who is very handy with the woodworking and with the table saw in our garage, so I knew all I needed to do was find the wood pieces from our scrap pile and give him the exact measurements I needed him to cut them. If you have a Home Depot or a Lowe's near you, the wonderful, wonderful staff there will be able to help you cut down that wood. And also, if you just have a handsaw or a miter box, it'd be pretty easy to do this with just like a handsaw. So don't need any big power tools, definitely makes it a little bit easier, and even better than that is having a husband to do it for you. But I did my math, I got my measurements, and now I have to dig through this giant wood scrap pile to find the pieces we were going to be using.
I bet you think that I should calm down, and that I'm overthinking everything about you.
We ended up having some mismatched pieces of plywood that was finished with a maple hardwood on top, so it's like cheaper than just buying straight up hardwood, but it's not as finished on the edges. You'll see what pieces ended up being the plywood pieces, and then we also had a couple pieces of just pure hardwood, just pure maple, so all of like the veneer and the finishes matched. It's just the edges didn't look exactly perfect, but I was willing to compromise on that for all of the wood costing $0 because we already had it on hand. Next up, I called in Christian, gave him my cut list, and he was an angel and cut all of this down for me.
Before I'm too invested, I should probably ask you all my questions, get to know you better. Like, can you be trusted? Will you take me for granted? And will you knock me down? I know I'm feeling something for you. The way you look, the way you laugh, and how you move. It kinda makes me go crazy. But we should take it slow, work things out so you don't let me go. When I come real close, I don't wanna get hurt, 'cause I'm not ready to give you my heart yet. Before I'm too
Now, my least favorite part of this process is the sanding, but it's also super necessary. This wood has very, very sharp edges, and it's gonna be in my daughter's playroom, and babies are little walking disasters. They're gonna fall into everything. Anything they could possibly injure themselves on, they will. So I focused the majority of the sanding on just the edges and the corners. I wanted to dull down any sharp edges, anything that was pointy, anything that was rough. I just really wanted to make this smooth and safe. So you can see I spend most of my time actually just sanding the edges. If you go on an angle along the edges, you can take the sharpness down, and I also did my best to round every single corner. I only used a 60 grit sanding paper because I wasn't terribly concerned about the wood feeling super soft at the touch or being super smooth. It was fine to me that it was rough. I just wanted all of the corners to be smooth and safe for a baby.
Before I'm too invested, I should probably ask you all my questions.
Now I probably should have already mentioned that I'm building 3 different shelves. I wanted to use a lot of the vertical space in the playroom. It'll fill up more of the wall, make it more decorative in there, but also I wanted all of the storage that 3 shelves would supply. And so I'm going to go through here with all of the sanded down lumber and decide which pieces are like the prettiest. Any imperfections or like knots in the wood, I wanted to hide that or have that be on like the bottom of the pieces. So I divided up which pieces went to each shelf, and then we're going to start to assemble. I'm sure that if I had Christian assemble this, he would have been much more professional and exact, and there's probably a better way to go about this, but I wanted to be Bob the Builder myself, and so I'm going to just be using some wood glue and clamps and making it work. I'm going to just use wood glue on all of the edges of these pieces and then glue it together. There's not really much to say about this part of the process, besides it's just kind of trial and error of how I could balance these shelves on the clamps we had.
Stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if I will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say a lot.
Here I had to go back and forth the tightness on the clamp to be able to get all of the pieces secured and glued down. The other thing about wood glue is that it's okay to make a little bit of a mess while you're kind of sliding these pieces in. I definitely had glue all over places I did not want glue to be, and it will dry down kind of quickly. You have a little bit of time to work with it, but once everything is secured and in place, you want to make sure you get a wet rag and really clean up all of the edges so that wood glue doesn't dry in places it shouldn't be. You just want it on the seams where the wood's touching each other. You don't want it leaking down and causing globs elsewhere. That'll be pretty tricky to clean up after it dries.
Up and start from the ground. And I really wanna know.
I ended up not adding that little front piece, the piece in the bottom left of the screen right now. I didn't glue it at the same time as all of the other pieces. It was challenging enough to balance all of these pieces, all 4 of these, in the clamps, so I'm gonna do that later on. I also only made 1 shelf the first day. I wanted to see how it dried, if it worked out, if I needed to adjust my plan, but after I took it out of the clamps, it was perfectly solid, looked great, looked awesome, which was super encouraging. So the next day I went back with 2 clamps and finished making the base of the other shelves.
The sky is falling down. Even if the sky is falling down, even if the sky is falling down, yeah. The sky is falling down.
Now the glue only needs 30 minutes until it's dry to the touch and only a couple hours until it's like pretty strong, but I was lazy and busy, so I waited a couple of days and then got to adding this little front bumper piece. Since these are going to be bookshelves, they kind of need something to stop the books from sliding off of it or just toppling over, and so these teeny tiny little pieces will just balance that. I made sure to measure the right length down so they all were symmetrical. That was the biggest challenge with making these shelves, is that you had to make sure all of the cuts were exactly the same or they were glued together at all the same places, because you'll be able to spot differences pretty easily when they're all right next to each other. Now here are the shelves in all their glory. I think I did a pretty good job at making knockoff Ikea shelves. They look very similar, and we are renters in this home, so I wanted to make this project renter friendly, so I decided to go with command hooks for hanging these up. The command hooks I bought were supposed to be able to hold up to 16 pounds, and I want to say the bookshelves are like 3 pounds each, and baby books are tiny, they're not going to weigh too much, and so as long as your kid isn't like pulling these off the wall, which mine has not tried to yet, it should stay. We've had these hanging up now for about a week and they are still going strong, no concerns there, but I did make sure to follow the instructions for the command strips very, very closely.
I used to stay up all night trying to find my place, chasing neon lights and looking for some kind of trace to lead me out of darkness. Give me a little faith, something to make me stronger, someone who could light the way. Then you came to me and you gave me reason. I almost can't believe it.
I made sure the blue painter's tape that was on the wall was perfectly level, so I could just use that as my guide. And the command strips had very specific instructions, like I said. These are 2-piece strips that are connected kind of like Velcro, and it said to first attach the command strips to the thing you were hanging, then press it up against the wall and peel off the Velcro strips. So you have one side of the strip staying on the thing you're hanging, and then one side will stay on the wall. Then you're supposed to press down very hard on all of the strips and let them kind of secure themselves and get really stable for an hour. So I did that with all of these shelves. This top one was a little bit tricky because they weren't glued perfectly straight, so the command hooks on the back of it, the 2 middle ones, didn't perfectly touch the wall. They were kind of a little too far away from the wall, so we had to kind of MacGyver that, but it all worked out and it's still hanging up there fine. But I definitely respected the instructions. I left these overnight. I made sure they were very secure to the wall. I pressed hard. I was patient. Normally I'm not patient with command hooks, but it was definitely worth it in this case because all 3 shelves are still standing strong. But the next morning I was ready to hang these bad boys up. You can also see me filming an Instagram reel on my cell phone in the bottom left corner. Head over to my Instagram to find the reel that I made of this video. It's a much speedier video. I also share lots of behind the scenes homemaking content over there if you are enjoying my channel. But the last step in this process is to bring down all of the books and then decorate these shelves. Now Maddie can't reach these top shelves, so I was able to put some more special books. Like she can't do just like single thin paper books, she just rips those apart. So board books will go on the bottom shelves, but like the prettier books that are bigger and just like thin paper, those can go on the top and be more like decor. I love the idea of using things that we already own as decor in this house, and then also like the books are so sweet. If you know me, I'm a huge reader and really hope to impart that on Madeline, so this is a very sweet addition to our playroom. Now I'm itching to add more stuff to the rest of this wall and finish decorating here, but I don't have any ideas for it yet.
Couldn't be without you now. I just can't see how, not even if I tried. Ooh, I couldn't be without you now. I just can't see how, 'cause I need you by my...
Also, this little Madeline book was mine as a little girl and actually inspired the name of our daughter, Madeline. So it's very sweet to have this on display in her playroom now. But that's it for this room. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye!